Fabiano Caruano won the Superbet Chess Classic 2024. He said during or after receiving the trophy as a winner, quoted, "Maybe we were making it a bit boring for on the final day, at least we added some excitement," unquote. Indeed, after what was the most exciting classical tournament in the history of the game, the final day made up for it with dramatic results in the classical portion and an exciting playoff to produce the tournament winner. A big part of all this comes from the fact that Caruana suffered his first loss of the tournament on the last day. "I feel good at the moment, but overall, of course, it was pretty bad day," Caruana said. The tournament winner also said, but with a big smile on his face, "I played terribly. Anish punished me. I played a poor game, but he played well. And then I was not even thinking about winning the tournament anymore." So this game was played between Anish Giri and Fabiano Caruana. Anish played d4. Fabiano replied with knight f6, c4, e6, g3, d5, bishop to g2 Panquieto. Fabiano moved bishop to b4 with check. This is a popular choice in the particular move order of the Catalan opening. This check forces white to transpose the game to a Nimsu India after knight c3. Giri and Caruana played a Catalan with transpose to in queen's India. So knight to d2. Usually the response are for white is bishop to d2, knight to c3, and knight to d2. Anish Giri responds with knight to d2. Fabiano castle. Giri developed the knight to f3, pawn to b6, planning to fianchetto the bishop, the white bishop to diagonal, castling, bishop to b7, then pawn to b3. There's also a move which is knight to e5. It's the most popular. This was played between Dubov and Jojirov in the speedplaychess.com Blitz 2024. Back to the game. Bishop to b7, b3, knight to bd7. Giri develops the bishop to b2, then queen to e7. a3 force attacking the bishop. Black responded with bishop to d6. Then Giri moved the knight to h4. An interesting move that shows a small portion with putting the queen to e7. White wants to capture the pawn on d5 by opening the long diagonal for the bishop. Black responded with g6, useful to protect the f5 square here, although it weakened the king side a little bit. Caruana responded with b4. There's a previous game played pawn takes d5 with a strong threat on e4. Pawn takes e5, knight c4 is interesting, but after knight e4, knight takes d6, then double the pawn are not bad as they look. The knight is strong on e4, and the position is balanced. This is a game played between Coughlin and Brunik 2021. There's also a game, rook to f8, which was played between Sadjikov and Soko 2018, where black pieces win the game. So back to the game. Giri responded with b4. This is a novelty. Black responded with c5. This is forced, otherwise white just played c4 to c5. So if the black didn't move, now white will move to c5. Black was forced to move c5. Giri takes the pawn on c5. Then pawn takes c5. Pawn takes d5. Pawn takes e5. It will be a bad move if bishop takes d5 pawn, because there is a pawn to e4 wins for white after fork with e2, e4 to e5. It is also a bad move if knight takes d5. Same goes. Pawn to e4, pawn takes e5, pawn takes c5, knight takes c5, and knight to b3, challenging the knight on c5. The knight moves from f to e4. There are two alternatives. One is rook to a8. Second is bishop to a6. Fabiano chooses the knight to e4. Giri responded with knight to a5, an interesting move. We can try also queen to d4. Looks tempting. It's control the dark long diagonal. But black can reply with f6, depending against the mate. Knight takes c5, bishop takes c5, attacking the queen. Then queen retreat to d3. Just an interesting move. Let's go to knight to a5. They say the knight on the side is dim, but Giri, a player with a superb positional understanding that places both of knights on the side, he does it with clear intention that the knight goes to a5. So he planning to capture the bishop, winning the bishop pair. Then Fabiano responded with rook to b8, defending the bishop, and now bishop e8 would win. Then queen to d4, the good old queen and bishop battery, forcing black to move the pawn to f6. The knight takes b7 and queen takes b7. Queen to d1, a very difficult but necessary move. The queen feels uncomfortable in d4 with the bishop to e5. The capture on b2 is not a good for black, a drastic measure sacrificing a pawn. This was not really necessary. It is a mistake. Dubious move. Taking the bishop is a dubious move. There are three other options, which is equal, bishop to e7, rook to fd8, and queen to b3, challenging queen to queen. Bishop to e7 is equal. Rook to fd8 is the favorite reply of a grandmaster, simply to develop the rook and protecting the d pawn. If bishop to d6 allows unpleasant knight to f3. So rook to b1, then queen to b3, challenging queen to queen, bishop to d4, queen takes d1, rook takes d1, then king f7 with an objective equal in game, although maybe slightly more pleasant for white in a practical game. White has a pair of bishop. There's a queen to b3, a possible pair of queen exchange, then response with bishop to d5, f5, and equal. Fabiano made a dubious move by taking the bishop on b2. Then Giri responded by taking the pawn on d5 with check, a best move. King to g7, bishop takes e4. Rook to d8. There's another move. Queen takes e2. Looks very bad, but it's actually a good choice because bishop takes g6, sacrificing the bishop before taking a piece of the same value. This device is known as desperado, but it will be responded with queen to e5, queen takes d6, queen takes d6, knight to f5, check, king to g6, then knight takes the queen on d6, rook to fd8, knight c4, slightly better for white. Let's go back to the game. So a dubious move because there's a best move by taking the pawn on d5, queen to d5, check, and king to g7, bishop takes e4, rook on d8, then rook to a2, attacking the queen, queen to e5. Queen can also move to b6. However, it will be responded by queen to c4. White advantage is bigger with the queens on the board as black kings is not very safe. Black king is in the open. So queen to e5. Black should exchange queen. Then queen takes e5. Bishop takes the queen on e5. White is a clear pawn up. But black has fair drawing chances. White is better in this area. Bishop g2, pawn to f5, knight f3, attacking the bishop on e5, bishop to f6, retreat, Rook to c2, attacking the knight. The knight moves to e4. Rook to c1, battering. Rook to f7. It is a dubious move. This allows Giri to execute a strong knight maneuver. The better move is rook to b8. Rook to b8 is better with good drawing chances. If white tries the same plan with knight to e1, blacks can try knight to c3. If rook takes the knight on c3, bishop captures the rook on c3, rook takes c3, then challenging rook on by placing the rook to c8, then rook takes c8, rook takes c8, followed by the chance in capturing the a3 pawn. So, a dubious move. Rook to b7. This allowed Giri to execute a strong knight maneuver. Knight to e1. A magnificent positional move, leading to knight to d3. The position is very difficult to defend now. So, rook to e7, knight to d3, and another dubious move, rook to d7. The best move is knight to g5, followed by knight to e6. But white is clearly better. Dubious move, rook to d7. Bishop takes the knight on e4. Pawn takes the bishop on e4. If rook takes the bishop on e4, loses the exchange. After, there's a fork, knight to c5. Forking the two. Pawn takes a4. Knight to c5. Then rook to d6, avoiding the attack. e3. So the endgame is technically winning because the e4 pawn is very weak. This is a very weak. The bishop, then attacking this. Rook to c6, a4, king h6. Bad move if rook to c7 because knight to e6 and it will lose. So king can move to h6 or f7. Fabiano moves king to h6, knight to b3, planning to exchange the rook and then attack the e pawn. Rook to b6, knight to d2, attacking the pawn on e4. Rook to e6, defending it, adding defenses to the pawn on e4. 1, 2. Rook c6, attacking the pawn. Then Fabiano responding with a5. Rook takes e6. Rook takes the rook on e6. This is now an end game. Rook to c4. The pawn e4 is doomed. Cannot be defended. So rook to b6. Knight takes e4. Bishop move to e7. Rook c7, attacking the bishop. So rook to e6, defending the bishop on e7. Giri responded with knight to d2, then g4. Knight to b3, attacking the pawn on a5. Fabiano responded with bishop to b4, defending it. Knight to d4, rook to e5. Then, a good move, g4, securing a dream square for the knight. King to g6. King to g2, activating the king in the end game. So the king must active. White is clearly winning. Rook to d5, king to f3, rook to d8, rook to c6 with check. So king moves to f7, knight to e6, rook to d5, king to e4, attacking the rook. Then rook to d2, planning to take all the pawns on the second rank. However, knight takes g5 with check, so king moves to e7, rook to e4, rook to a2, attacking the knight on a4, king to d5, rook takes a4, rook moves to c7 with check, so king moves to e8, king to e6, king to d8, preventing the rook to c8. So rook to c4, There's no defense for knight to f7. With a king of c, then it's a checkmate.